During dinner, my mother said she was going to sell the family business and wouldn't give me a single cent. My siblings laughed and said I would always be poor, but when I revealed who the buyer was, they were shocked. My name is Jessica, and I'm about to tell you the most complicated Christmas dinner story you'll ever hear. 8 years. That's how long I stayed away from Boston, from my family, from everything that made me feel small and worthless. But sitting in my Austin apartment last December, staring at the formal invitation written in my mother's careful handwriting, I knew it was time. The flight felt longer than usual. In my carry-on was a manila folder containing documents that would change everything, but nobody knew that yet. The Morrison family home looked exactly the same, a modest 2-story colonial in Jamaica Plain, with green shutters and white picket fence that needed painting. Mom's old sedan was in the driveway next to Marcus's pickup truck. I could see warm light spilling from the dining room windows. I rang the doorbell instead of using my old key. When Mom opened the door, her face cycled through surprise, confusion, and something that might have been relief. "Jessica?" Her voice was smaller than I remembered. We didn't think you'd actually come. The invitation said Christmas dinner at 6, I replied. It's 5:55. Inside, the house smelled like roasted turkey and old memories. Dad was setting the table, his hair grayer than in photos Marcus occasionally posted online. Marcus himself was opening wine, already looking flushed. David looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. "Look who decided to grace us with her presence," Marcus said. "The prodigal daughter returns." "Marcus," Dad warned quietly. "What? 8 years, Jess. 8 years of nothing. We didn't even know if you were alive." I took off my coat. "I've been busy." "Doing what exactly?" Mom asked. "Last we heard, you were doing computer work in Texas." "Something like that." Dinner conversation was stilted. They talked about local news, Dad's retirement plans, Marcus's sales numbers. I mostly listened, observing how they'd aged, how dynamics had shifted but stayed the same. During dessert, Mom cleared her throat in that way that meant important news. "I suppose this is as good a time as any," she said, looking at me. "We're selling the company." The room went quiet. My heart started beating faster. Morrison Medical Devices is being acquired by Phoenix Solutions. The deal closes January 15th. Her voice carried relief and resignation. "It's for $2.8 million. Marcus nearly choked. 2.8? Mom, that's barely what Grandpa's equipment was worth. It's fair, considering our situation. I knew exactly what situation she meant. I'd been tracking the company through public records. David had even called me 6 months ago. Phoenix Solutions, I repeated thoughtfully. "Tell me about them." "Small company, very professional," Dad said. "They specialize in modernizing medical equipment manufacturers. They want to keep all employees, maintain local operations." "That's generous." "We're lucky they made an offer," Mom admitted. "We were 6 months from bankruptcy." I nodded slowly, then reached for my purse. "I have something to tell you all." I pulled out the manila folder. Phoenix Solutions, the company buying Morrison Medical Devices. I own it. Profound silence. Marcus's fork clattered. Mom went pale. David stared with his mouth open. Dad just blinked. "That's not possible," Mom whispered. I opened the folder, spreading documents across the table. Business licenses, incorporation papers, tax filings, all bearing my name as CEO and sole owner. I started Phoenix Solutions 6 years ago in Austin. We specialize in modernizing small medical equipment manufacturers. "You're buying us out?" Marcus asked quietly. "I bought you out. The paperwork is filed. I've been the mystery buyer for 3 months." I looked around the table at their stunned faces. 8 years of silence. And this was how I chose to break it. "How about we start with why I left?" I said. "Then I'll tell you how a girl who was told she'd never understand business just saved the family company. Let me paint you a picture of how Morrison Medical Devices actually worked. My grandfather started it in 1987, building heart monitors in his garage for local clinics who couldn't afford expensive equipment from major manufacturers. By the time I was born, it had grown into a modest operation with 25 employees and a factory space in Dorchester. When Grandpa died 12 years ago, Mom inherited everything. She'd worked there since college, handling administration and customer relations. She knew the business inside and out, but had very specific ideas about how things should run. The most important rule? Women didn't understand the technical side of medical devices. This was rich, considering Mom ran the entire operation, but in her mind, there was a clear distinction. She could manage business, handle finances, deal with customers, but actual engineering, product development, that was men's work. Marcus was the golden child, the heir apparent. At 35, he'd worked at Morrison Medical for 8 years with the official title of sales director. In reality, he maintained relationships with exactly 3 clients, all personal connections. His father-in-law ran a clinic in Quincy. His college roommate worked at a medical supply company. His golf buddy managed purchasing for a nursing home chain. That was Marcus's entire sales network, generating maybe $200,000 in annual revenue. But Mom talked about him like he was a business genius. Marcus has such a natural way with people, she'd say. He understands relationship building in a way that can't be taught. What she really meant was that he was charming enough to maintain existing relationships, but completely incapable of generating new business. Then there was David, my younger brother, who was actually brilliant. He had a degree in biomedical engineering from Northeastern and could troubleshoot any equipment blindfolded. When clients called with problems, David solved them. When equipment needed upgrading, David figured it out on a shoestring budget. When the FDA required new compliance documentation, David researched and implemented it. For this, he earned $38,000 a year while Marcus pulled down $55,000 for playing golf with old friends. Dad's role was intentionally minimal. He handled basic bookkeeping using software they'd installed in 1994, processed payroll, and managed inventory. Mom liked having him involved enough to feel important, but not enough to actually influence decisions. The company's financials were exactly what you'd expect. Annual revenue of $450,000 with an 8% profit margin. Not terrible for a small manufacturing business, but not thriving either. They were stuck in maintenance mode, doing enough to stay afloat but never growing, never innovating, never positioning for the future. I'd grown up watching all this, spending summers and weekends at the factory, listening to Grandpa explain how monitors worked, why design choices mattered, what made their products different. By 16, I could calibrate a heart monitor faster than most technicians. I understood the engineering principles, regulatory requirements, market dynamics. None of this mattered to Mom. I was the daughter. And daughters didn't grow up to run medical device companies. I could help with filing, answer phones during busy periods, handle administrative tasks that didn't require technical knowledge. But actual engineering, business strategy, those were serious responsibilities requiring serious people, meaning men. This was the dynamic I grew up in. A family business where capability was distributed randomly, but recognition followed strict patriarchal hierarchy. Marcus got respect for mediocre results. David got overlooked despite excellent work. I got dismissed before I had a chance to prove myself. The day that changed everything happened on a Tuesday in March, 8 years ago. I was 24, just graduated from MIT with a software engineering degree, and bursting with ideas about modernizing Morrison medical devices. I'd spent my senior year developing a software system that could integrate with existing heart monitors to provide predictive analytics. Instead of just measuring heart rate and rhythm, the system could identify patterns indicating potential problems before they became emergencies. It wasn't groundbreaking by Silicon Valley standards, but for small clinics using basic equipment, it could be revolutionary. The software ran on a simple tablet, interfaced through Bluetooth, and provided early warning systems that could save lives. I'd worked on this for months, staying up until 3 a.m., skipping social events, living on coffee and determination. I knew it could work for Morrison Medical. Our monitors were reliable but basic, exactly the type that could benefit from smart software integration. The opportunity came when Mom scheduled a meeting with potential investors. 2 guys from a local investment group were coming to discuss providing capital for expansion. Mom had been treating this like the most important business development in company history. I saw this as my chance. I prepared a presentation showing how predictive software could differentiate Morrison Medical from every other small manufacturer in the region. I had working prototypes, market research, regulatory analysis, everything serious investors would want. The morning of the meeting, I arrived early and set up my laptop in the conference room. Mom found me around 9 going through slides. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Getting ready for the presentation. I want to show the investors my software integration project." Her face went through several expressions before settling on something between amusement and annoyance. "Jessica, honey, this is a serious business meeting. These men are considering investing real money." "I know. That's why I want to show them how we can differentiate ourselves." "With your little computer project?" The dismissiveness should have warned me, but I was too excited. "It's not little, Mom. This software could transform how small clinics use monitoring equipment. We could charge premium prices instead of competing on cost." She sighed and sat down. Jessica, I know you're proud of your college work, but this is the real world. These investors want proven business models, not experimental technology. It's not experimental. I have working prototypes. Made for a school project. The investors arrived at 11, Mr. Thompson and Mr. Walsh from Boston Medical Ventures. They looked exactly like the serious businessmen Mom had been preparing for. Mom welcomed them and started with her overview of Morrison Medical Devices. She was actually quite good at this part. Then Marcus stumbled through 15 minutes about expanding sales territory. His presentation was full of vague statements about leveraging relationships and identifying opportunities. The investors listened politely, but without enthusiasm. When Marcus finished, there was awkward silence. Finally, Mr. Thompson asked, "What about product development? Any new technologies or innovations?" I started to stand, but Mom cut me off. "We're always looking at improvements, but our focus is reliability and cost-effectiveness rather than experimental technologies." "What about software integration?" Mr. Walsh asked. "Most growth in medical devices comes from smart systems interfacing with hospital networks." I couldn't stay quiet. "Actually, we do have a software integration project. I've developed a system that transforms basic monitors into predictive analytics platforms." The room went silent. Mom's face turned red. "Jessica quer brincar de programadora," Mom said, using Portuguese like she did when frustrated. "But this is serious business for serious men." Something broke inside me. "I'm not playing. I'm trying to save this company." "Jessica, that's enough. Why don't you go organize the storage room files? Let the adults handle this." I closed my laptop, gathered my materials, and walked out. I didn't just leave the meeting. I left the building, drove home, packed a suitcase, and bought a one-way ticket to Austin. Austin in March was nothing like Boston. The weather was warmer, people seemed more relaxed, and nobody cared what family I came from. I landed with $4,500 in savings, a suitcase, and a laptop containing the software project that got me exiled. The first month was brutal. I rented a room near the university for $400 a month, sharing a bathroom with 3 other people and sleeping on a thrift store mattress. My roommates were a graduate student, a musician, and someone who claimed to be an artist but mostly played video games. They were younger than me, but they were who I could afford to live with. Finding work wasn't easy. Austin's tech scene was booming, but companies wanted either senior developers with years of experience or junior developers willing to work for almost nothing. I was somewhere in the middle, too experienced for intern wages, not experienced enough for senior salaries. I took freelance projects, building websites for local businesses, fixing computer problems, teaching myself new programming languages at night. Some weeks I'd make $800, others nothing. I lived on ramen noodles, peanut butter sandwiches, and convenience store coffee. But here's the thing about being completely on your own with no safety net. It clarifies priorities very quickly. Every project mattered because I needed money. Every skill could mean the difference between making rent and sleeping in my car. There was no family business to fall back on, no assumptions about what I was capable of. After 6 months, I was making enough freelance income to feel stable, but I hadn't forgotten the software project that started this journey. Evenings, I continued developing the predictive analytics system, improving algorithms, refining interfaces, researching regulatory requirements. The breakthrough came at a medical technology conference in downtown Austin. I'd spent $200 I couldn't afford, hoping to learn about industry trends and make professional contacts. The conference was full of people from major manufacturers, hospital administrators, and venture capitalists. During lunch break, I was sitting alone reviewing notes when someone approached. "Excuse me, are you Jessica from Boston?" I looked up to see a man in his 60s wearing a badge identifying him as Dr. Lenister from Austin Regional Clinic. It took me a moment. But then I remembered. He was one of the clients at Morrison Medical the day of my humiliated presentation. Dr. Lenister. I didn't expect to see anyone from Boston here. I moved my practice to Austin last year. Better weather, lower costs, fewer regulations. But what are you doing in Texas? Last time I saw you, your mother was sending you to organize files. The memory stung, but I managed to smile. I moved here after college. I'm working as a software developer now. What kind of software? Actually, I'm still working on that predictive analytics system I mentioned at Morrison Medical, the one that integrates with standard heart monitors to provide early warning capabilities. His eyes lit up immediately. The system your mother dismissed? You're still developing that? I never stopped. It's better now. More accurate pattern recognition, easier interface, better integration protocols. Dr. Lenister sat down. "Can you show me?" I opened my laptop and demonstrated the entire system for 30 minutes. how it connected to equipment, how algorithms identified concerning patterns, how the interface presented actionable information to medical staff. "This is exactly what we need," he said when I finished. "Small clinics like mine can't afford sophisticated monitoring systems that hospitals use, but we see high-risk patients who could benefit from predictive analytics. How much would this cost?" I did quick calculations. For a complete system, software licensing, tablet hardware, setup and training, probably around $15,000. $15,000 to upgrade our basic monitoring to predictive analytics? That's right. He handed me his business card. "I want to be your first customer. Can you have a working system ready in 60 days? I looked at the card, then his expectant face. This was everything I'd dreamed of in that Boston conference room. "Yes, I can have it ready in 60 days. That night, I called my landlord about renting the office space above the house. I registered Phoenix Solutions as a sole proprietorship, opened a business account, and started working 18-hour days to deliver Dr. Lenister's system on schedule. Years 2 through 6 of Phoenix Solutions were about building something sustainable, rather than just surviving. The initial success with Dr. Lenister and his referrals gave me confidence and capital to think bigger, but I was determined to grow strategically. By year 2, I'd generated $220,000 in revenue and faced my first major decision: stay small and manageable, or hire people and scale up. I could see market demand was larger than I could handle alone. My first hire was Raj, a software developer I'd met at a local tech meetup. He was brilliant but stuck at a consulting firm working on boring corporate databases while dreaming of building something meaningful. I offered him $45,000 plus equity in Phoenix Solutions, a pay cut, but with the promise of working on technology that saved lives. "You're sure this medical software actually works?" he asked during our coffee shop interview. "Dr. Lenister's clinic has prevented 4 cardiac emergencies in 6 months using our predictive alerts," I told him. "Heart attacks caught early because the software identified concerning patterns before patients felt symptoms." That sold him. Raj was everything I'd hoped. Technically excellent, completely reliable, genuinely excited about improving healthcare through better technology. My second hire was Maria, a UX designer who understood that medical software needed to be intuitive for busy doctors and nurses. She'd worked at healthcare companies and knew how to make complex analytics accessible to medical professionals with no time for complicated systems. The third team member was Tom, an electronics technician who could interface our software with any monitoring equipment. This was crucial because small practices typically had whatever equipment they could afford, often from different manufacturers with different connection protocols. With this team of 4, Phoenix Solutions could deliver complete integrated systems: software, hardware, installation, training, and ongoing support. Our sweet spot became small to medium clinics that wanted sophisticated monitoring, but couldn't afford hospital-grade systems costing hundreds of thousands. Our typical installation cost clients $8,000, much cheaper than competing solutions, but profitable enough to support our growing team. The key was volume and efficiency. We could install and configure a complete system in half a day, train medical staff in 2 hours, and provide remote support for any issues. Year 3 brought $480,000 in revenue with 12 active client sites across Texas and Oklahoma. We'd found our rhythm. Raj improved software based on user feedback. Maria refined interfaces to be more intuitive. Tom handled technical installations, and I managed client relationships and business development. The real breakthrough came in year 4 when we landed our first hospital contract. Austin Regional Hospital had heard about our work with local clinics and wanted to pilot our system in their emergency department. Hospitals were completely different: more bureaucratic, longer sales cycles, more complex approvals, but much larger contracts. The hospital pilot was successful enough that they implemented throughout their cardiac care units, generating a single contract worth $150,000. More importantly, it gave us credibility with other hospitals and opened an entirely new market segment. By year 5, we were doing business in 4 states with 23 installations ranging from single doctor practices to regional medical centers. Revenue hit $600,000, and I faced another scaling decision: stay regional and manageable, or try to grow into a national company. I chose careful growth. Instead of trying to cover the entire country, we focused on specific regions where we could provide excellent service and build strong reputations. Texas and Oklahoma became our home base, but we expanded into Louisiana, Arkansas, and New Mexico, states where we could drive to client sites if needed. Year 6 brought $750,000 in revenue with 38 active installations. We'd outgrown the office above my old rental house and moved into a proper business complex. Phoenix Solutions had become exactly what I'd envisioned: a sustainable business that improved healthcare while generating profit to support everyone involved. But success brought new challenges. Larger competitors were starting to notice our market segment. Healthcare regulations were becoming more complex. Client expectations were rising as our reputation grew. Most importantly, I was thinking about the next phase of development. We'd proven our technology worked and there was substantial demand. The question was whether to continue growing gradually or make a bigger play for market leadership. The call from David came on a Thursday afternoon in November, 5 years after I'd left Boston. I was reviewing quarterly reports when my phone rang with a number I hadn't seen in years but still recognized. "Jessica? It's David. Your brother David." I set down the reports. "Hi, David. This is unexpected. I know we haven't talked since you left, and I know this is weird, but I need to ask you something." He paused, and I could hear office noise in the background. "Do you know anyone who might be interested in buying a medical device company?" The question hung in the air. "What kind of medical device company?" "A small one, family-owned. Makes heart monitors and basic diagnostic equipment. Has some good client relationships but needs modernization and better management." I knew he was talking about Morrison Medical, but I played along. "What's the situation? Why are they looking to sell?" David sighed deeply. "The company's in trouble, Jess, real trouble. We've lost 2 of our 5 biggest clients in the past year. Equipment orders are down 40%. We're carrying about $180,000 in debt, and cash flow is negative. This was worse than I'd expected from my research. What's causing the problems? Honestly, we're stuck in the past. Our monitors work fine, but they're basic. Clients want integrated systems, software analytics, remote monitoring capabilities. Marcus keeps saying we should stick with what we know, but what we know isn't what the market wants anymore." I found myself genuinely concerned for David. He'd always been the most technically competent person at Morrison Medical, and it sounded like he was watching the company slowly collapse while being powerless to fix it. "What does your mother think about selling? She's finally admitting we might not have a choice. The bank is pressuring us about the debt, and we can't make payroll much longer without new capital or new clients. Marcus is in denial, Dad doesn't want to get involved in family arguments, and I'm drowning trying to keep our existing systems running while also trying to develop new products. What about bringing in outside management? Or finding an investor instead of a buyer? Mom won't give up control to outside management, and investors want to see growth potential. We'd need to completely overhaul our product line and modernize our operations, but we don't have the capital or expertise to do that ourselves." I was quiet for a moment, processing this information. The company I'd grown up around, stable and profitable for decades, was 6 months away from bankruptcy because they'd refused to adapt to changing market conditions. "David, can I ask you something? Do you remember when I proposed that software integration project 8 years ago?" He was quiet so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, "Yeah, I remember. You wanted to add predictive analytics to our basic monitors. What did you think of that idea?" Another long pause. "Honestly, I thought it was brilliant. I still think it was brilliant. If we'd implemented something like that back then, we'd probably be thriving instead of dying. Why didn't you say that at the time?" "Because I was 22 and scared of disagreeing with Mom in front of investors. Because I thought there would be other opportunities to bring it up later. Because I was a coward." His voice was full of regret. "Jess, I've thought about that meeting 1,000 times. You had a solution to problems we didn't even realize we had yet." I felt a complicated mix of vindication and sympathy. David had recognized the value of my ideas, but hadn't been willing or able to support them when it mattered. "So now you're asking if I know anyone who might buy the company? I know it's a long shot. But you work in tech now, right? Maybe you know some investors or acquirers who specialize in medical devices. I'm not asking for money or favors, just if you happen to know someone who might be interested in a distressed acquisition." I looked around my Phoenix Solutions office. We had the capital, expertise, and industry knowledge to turn around a struggling medical device manufacturer. More importantly, we had the exact technology solutions that could modernize Morrison Medical's product line. "David, what if I told you I might know someone?" "Really? Someone legitimate who actually understands the medical device industry? Someone who specializes in modernizing small medical equipment manufacturers? Someone who's developed exactly the kind of integrated software solutions that could differentiate Morrison Medical from the competition?" Hope crept into his voice. "That sounds too good to be true. What would they want in terms of price and conditions?" The silence after my Christmas revelation stretched forever. Marcus was first to break it, his voice barely a whisper. "You own Phoenix Solutions?" "I founded it 6 years ago," I said matter-of-factly. We specialize in modernizing medical equipment manufacturers through software integration and operational improvements. Mom stared at the documents like they were written in a foreign language. But you work with computers. I work with medical technology software. The same technology I tried to show you 8 years ago. Dad picked up one of the incorporation papers and studied it. Phoenix Solutions. Incorporated in Texas. Jessica as CEO and sole proprietor. He looked up with something that might have been pride. You built a real company. A real company that's about to acquire Morrison Medical for $2.8 million. Marcus pushed back from the table abruptly. This is insane. You can't just disappear for 8 years and then buy us out like we're some distressed investment. That's exactly what you are. A distressed investment. David called me 6 months ago because you were facing bankruptcy. I made a fair offer through legitimate channels. You accepted it. David called you? Mom's voice was sharp. David, you called Jessica? My younger brother looked miserable but nodded. We needed help. Mom? The company was dying and I didn't know what else to do. So, you went behind my back to contact the daughter who abandoned us? I asked if she knew anyone who might buy the company. I didn't know she was going to be the buyer. I pulled out my phone and showed them Phoenix Solutions' website. 6 years ago, I had one client and worked from a bedroom office. Today, we have 38 installations across 5 states, 7 employees, and $750,000 in annual revenue. Mom took my phone and scrolled through the website, her expression changing as she read. You develop software for medical monitoring equipment. Predictive analytics systems that integrate with existing monitors to provide early warning capabilities. The exact technology I proposed in that meeting 8 years ago. The meeting where She stopped, finally understanding the full scope. The meeting where you told me I was playing with computers while adults handled serious business. Where you sent me to organize files while Marcus presented expansion plans that never materialized. Marcus stood suddenly, knocking over his wine glass. This is revenge. Pure and simple revenge. This is business. Phoenix Solutions is looking to expand into hardware manufacturing. Morrison Medical has manufacturing capabilities but outdated technology and poor management. It's a logical acquisition. Poor management? Mom's voice was getting higher. I built this company from nothing after your grandfather died. You maintained what Grandpa built, but didn't grow it, didn't modernize it, didn't adapt to market changes. In 8 years, your revenue stayed flat while competitors grew 20 to 30% annually. Dad was still studying the documents. Jessica, how did you know we were in financial trouble? Industry publications, public filings, client feedback. It wasn't hard to research. David's call just confirmed what I already suspected. You've been watching us? Marcus asked. I've been tracking industry consolidation trends. Small manufacturers that refuse to modernize typically get acquired or go bankrupt. I was hoping Morrison Medical would be an acquisition opportunity rather than a bankruptcy situation. Mom set down my phone and looked directly at me for the first time. Why? Why would you want to save the company that rejected you? This was the question I'd been preparing for. Because Grandpa loved this company. Because 25 people depend on it for their livelihoods. Because the technology exists to make Morrison Medical successful again, and I happen to own that technology. And because you want to prove us wrong, David said quietly. I considered denying it, but decided on honesty. Yes, that too. The room fell quiet again. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. What happens now? What are your plans? Integration with Phoenix Solutions technology platform. Modernization of the product line. Streamlined operations. Better management structure. I paused, looking around the table. And yes, personnel changes. You're firing Marcus, Mom said flatly. I'm restructuring the organization around competence rather than family relationships. Marcus can stay if he's willing to learn new skills and accept a role matching his capabilities. So I work for my little sister now? Marcus laughed bitterly. The little sister who proposed the technology that's now going to save your company? That little sister? Enough, Dad said firmly. Jessica, are you doing this to help us or hurt us? I thought about that question carefully. I'm doing this because it's the right business decision for Phoenix Solutions. The fact that it also saves Morrison Medical is secondary. But you're not going to destroy us out of spite? Dad, if I wanted to destroy Morrison Medical, I could have waited 6 months for you to go bankrupt naturally. The week between Christmas and New Year's was when reality set in. I stayed in Boston to begin integration, working from a hotel room and spending days at Morrison Medical, trying to understand exactly what I'd bought. The financial situation was worse than David had indicated. The company owed $180,000 to suppliers, had less than $15,000 cash on hand, and faced a $25,000 equipment lease payment in January they couldn't make. Without Phoenix Solutions, Morrison Medical would have been bankrupt by February. But the problems went deeper than cash flow. The product line consisted of 3 basic heart monitor models that hadn't been updated in over 5 years. Manufacturing equipment was functional but inefficient. Most critically, they had no research and development capability whatsoever. I spent 2 days going through client files and discovered they'd lost contracts not because their equipment didn't work, but because it didn't do what modern medical practices needed. Clinics wanted monitors interfacing with electronic health records. Hospitals needed devices providing data analytics. Regional medical centers required equipment integrating with existing monitoring networks. On December 30th, I called a family meeting to present my findings. We met in the same conference room where I'd been humiliated 8 years earlier, but this time I sat at the head where Mom usually sat. The good news is that Morrison Medical has excellent name recognition, solid client relationships, and a reputation for reliable equipment. The bad news is that reliable isn't enough anymore. I pulled out competitor analysis, market research, and client feedback reports. In 3 years, you've lost contracts worth approximately $400,000 annually because clients needed capabilities you couldn't provide. Mom reviewed the reports with growing dismay. I had no idea the market had changed this much. It didn't change all at once. It's been evolving gradually for years, but you weren't tracking industry trends or investing in product development. Marcus, unusually quiet, finally spoke. So everything we've been doing is wrong? I'm saying what worked in 2010 doesn't work in 2023. Medical practices expect integrated software solutions, not standalone hardware. But our clients were happy with our equipment. Your remaining clients are happy. The clients you lost needed more advanced capabilities. I pulled out another report. Marcus, in 2 years as sales director, you generated $85,000 in new business while the company lost contracts worth $400,000. Client retention wasn't sufficient to offset market evolution. His face went red, but he didn't argue with numbers. David was studying technical specifications I'd prepared. Jessica, this Phoenix Solutions software, this is exactly what Dr. Lenister was asking about 3 years ago, and what Regional Medical wanted when they canceled their contract. I know. Phoenix Solutions' current clients are primarily small to medium medical practices that need affordable access to predictive analytics. Morrison Medical's traditional client base. Mom looked up from financial projections. So the technology you proposed 8 years ago would have prevented most of these problems? The core technology, yes. But implementation would have required substantial investment in software development, staff training, and marketing to practices needing integrated solutions. Investment we didn't make because I thought your ideas were impractical. Investment you didn't make because you assumed the market would stay the same forever. Understandable for a small family business, but not sustainable in a rapidly evolving industry. Dad had been silent but now spoke up. What changes are you proposing? I opened my laptop and projected a presentation. Phase 1, integrate Phoenix Solutions software with Morrison Medical hardware. Phase 2, retrain sales and technical staff. Phase 3, rebuild client relationships based on enhanced capabilities rather than just price and reliability. What about personnel? Mom asked. This was the difficult part. The company employs 25 people, but the restructured operation needs different skill sets. I'll need to make some changes. Who gets laid off? Marcus asked bluntly. 2 manufacturing technicians whose positions will be eliminated by automation. 1 administrative assistant whose responsibilities will be absorbed by new software systems. I paused. And the sales director position will be restructured into customer success manager with different responsibilities. Marcus stared at me. You're demoting me. I'm creating a position matching your actual strengths. You're excellent at maintaining relationships with existing clients, but you struggle with technical sales and new business development. Customer success focuses on client retention and satisfaction rather than new sales generation. What's the pay cut? No pay cut. Same salary, different responsibilities, with performance bonuses based on client satisfaction metrics rather than sales volume. This surprised him. You're not punishing me financially? I'm restructuring around what each person does well. Punishment doesn't improve business performance. The first 6 months of integration were harder than expected, but not for the reasons I'd anticipated. The technical challenges were manageable. Phoenix Solutions software integrated smoothly with Morrison Medical's hardware. The real difficulties were human. Mom struggled most with the transition. For 30 years, she'd been the final authority on every decision. Now she was a consultant who provided input but didn't make decisions. Some days she handled it gracefully, offering valuable insights about client relationships. Other days, she'd forget her new role and try to overrule my decisions, creating staff confusion. "Jessica, we can't change the installation timeline for regional medical," she said during a February staff meeting. "They're expecting delivery next week, and we've always been reliable about commitments." "Mom, regional medical agreed to a 2-week delay so we can include the predictive analytics upgrade. They specifically requested the enhanced system even though it means waiting longer. But we've never made clients wait for upgrades before. Because we've never had upgrades to offer before. The enhanced system is worth the wait." These exchanges were awkward for everyone, but gradually Mom began understanding that her role was providing context and relationship insights, not managing operations. Marcus, surprisingly, adapted better than anyone expected. The customer success manager position turned out perfect for his personality and skills. He was genuinely good at maintaining relationships with existing clients, solving service problems, and ensuring customer satisfaction. Without the pressure of generating new sales, he relaxed into a role where he could focus on keeping people happy rather than trying to close deals he didn't understand. "I talked to Dr. Patterson at Quincy Medical today," he reported during a March staff meeting. "They're thrilled with the new monitoring system. The predictive alerts have helped them identify 3 potential cardiac events before patients showed symptoms." "Any issues with the software interface?" I asked. "None. The nurses love how intuitive it is, and Dr. Patterson says the data visualizations are exactly what he needs to make quick decisions." This was the Marcus I remembered from childhood. Enthusiastic, personable, genuinely interested in helping people. The sales pressure and family expectations had turned him into someone defensive and insecure. But customer success work let him be himself again. David thrived in his expanded technical role. With proper resources and support staff, he could finally focus on what he did best: solving complex technical problems and training medical staff to use sophisticated equipment. The $15,000 salary increase meant he could afford night classes in advanced biomedical engineering, positioning him for greater responsibilities as the company grew. "The installation at Austin Regional went perfectly," he reported during an April video conference from Boston while I was in Austin. "Their IT department was impressed with how seamlessly our system integrated with their existing network. They're already asking about expanding to additional departments." "What about training?" I asked. 4 hours for nursing staff, 2 hours for doctors. Everyone was comfortable with the system by day's end. The interface design makes it intuitive even for people who aren't technical. Dad remained the steady presence he'd always been, handling financial management and administrative tasks without drama or complaint. He seemed genuinely happy to see the company stabilizing and growing, and never showed resentment about his daughter becoming his boss. But the integration wasn't just about family dynamics. We had real business challenges. The hardest part was letting go of the 2 manufacturing technicians and 1 administrative assistant, whose positions were eliminated by automation and new software systems. These were people who had worked for Morrison Medical for years, and terminating them felt terrible even though it was necessary for survival. I handled each conversation personally, providing generous severance packages and job placement assistance. The administrative assistant found a position at a nearby medical practice within 3 weeks. 1 manufacturing technician was hired by a competing company impressed by his Morrison Medical experience. The other decided to use his severance to go back to school for computer programming. "You didn't have to be so generous with the severance," Mom commented after the last termination. "Yes, I did. These people helped build Morrison Medical. The fact that we don't need their positions anymore doesn't diminish their contributions." By May, the restructured company was hitting its stride. Revenue was up 40% over the previous year, driven entirely by existing clients upgrading to enhanced monitoring systems. We hadn't even begun serious new business development, but word was spreading about Morrison Medical's new capabilities. 2 years after the acquisition, I was reviewing quarterly reports that would have seemed impossible just a few years earlier. Morrison Medical, now Phoenix Morrison Medical Solutions, was generating $1.2 million annually and employing 15 people. We'd become exactly what I'd envisioned: a regional leader in smart medical monitoring systems. The transformation had been more complete than anyone expected. Our 3 product lines covered every market segment from small clinics to major hospitals. More importantly, we'd established ourselves as the go-to company for medical practices wanting hospital-grade capabilities at regional company prices. Mom had evolved into a role I'd never imagined: a genuine mentor and institutional memory keeper. Her resistance to technology had gradually given way to curiosity, then competence, then actual enthusiasm for what our systems could accomplish. "Dr. Lannister called this morning," she reported during our weekly staff meeting. Austin Regional Clinic wants to upgrade their entire monitoring network with our latest predictive algorithms. What's the timeline? I asked. 6 weeks for installation, but he's requesting that David personally handle the training. Apparently, our reputation for customer service is spreading. David beamed at this recognition. His transformation had been remarkable. From an overworked, underappreciated technician to a confident technical supervisor managing a team of 4 specialists. He'd completed his MBA coursework the previous spring and was taking on increasing operational responsibility. I've been thinking about the Boston Medical Center expansion project, he said. They want to add remote monitoring capabilities for cardiac rehabilitation patients. I think we could develop a mobile app that interfaces with our existing system. How long for development? 3 months with our current programming team, or 6 weeks if we bring in one of Phoenix Solutions' senior developers from Austin. Do it. Boston Medical could become a showcase for home monitoring capabilities. Marcus looked up from his client satisfaction reports. If we're doing home monitoring, I should start reaching out to our other hospital clients. Regional Medical has been asking about remote patient management for months. This was the Marcus I'd hoped would emerge. Proactive, strategic, thinking beyond immediate problems to anticipate client needs. The customer success manager role had given him confidence and clear objectives, allowing him to contribute meaningfully rather than just maintaining status quo relationships. Good idea, but let's pilot the system with Boston Medical first. Get the bugs worked out, then roll it out to other clients with proven capabilities. Dad raised his hand slightly, a habit he'd developed when he wanted to contribute to business discussions. What about financial projections for mobile development? We'll need additional programmer salaries, software licensing, probably some hardware partnerships. Initial investment of about $80,000 for development and testing, break even within 18 months based on conservative adoption rates. Mom studied the numbers. 2 years ago, $80,000 would have bankrupted us. Now it's a routine development expense. 2 years ago, we were manufacturing the same basic monitors we'd been making for 15 years. Now we're developing cutting-edge solutions for evolving market needs. Because you brought the technology we should have been developing all along. It was an acknowledgement she'd made several times over the past year. And I appreciated it. But I was more interested in looking forward than relitigating the past. Phoenix Morrison Medical was succeeding because we'd combined Morrison Medical's industry relationships with Phoenix Solutions' technical capabilities. The real measure of our success wasn't just financial. It was the impact we were having on patient care. Dr. Lenister had documented 12 cardiac events prevented by early intervention based on our predictive algorithms. Boston Medical reported 30% reduction in emergency room visits among high-risk cardiac patients using our monitoring systems. We got another site visit request, David reported. University of Vermont Medical Center wants to see our Boston Medical installation before making their decision. That's the 3rd site visit request this month, Marcus added. Word is definitely spreading about what we can do. The meeting with Boston Healthcare Ventures took place 3 weeks later. The venture capital partners were impressed by our financial performance and excited about our technology platform, but their questions revealed assumptions about scaling that made me uncomfortable. Obviously, you'd want to automate more of the manufacturing process, one partner suggested, and probably centralize customer service rather than handling support locally. Why would we want to do that? Mom asked. Our local relationships and personalized service are competitive advantages. After the meeting, I realized that taking venture capital would fundamentally change what Phoenix Morrison Medical was. The investors wanted us to become a smaller version of large manufacturers we were competing against, rather than a more sophisticated version of the regional company we'd always been. The call from the Boston Chamber of Commerce came on a Tuesday morning in September, 3 years after the acquisition. Ms. Morrison, this is Patricia Williams from the Small Business Awards Committee. I'm calling to inform you that Phoenix Morrison Medical Solutions has been selected as this year's recipient of the Small Business Innovation Award. I set down my coffee and tried to process what she'd just said. Could you repeat that? The Small Business Innovation Award. It recognizes companies that have demonstrated exceptional growth through technological innovation while maintaining strong community ties. Your company was nominated by several clients and selected unanimously by our review committee. The award ceremony was scheduled for October 15th at the Downtown Marriott, with over 300 business leaders, elected officials, and community members expected to attend. They wanted me to give a brief acceptance speech about our journey and what the recognition meant. After hanging up, I sat in my office for several minutes, remembering the struggling family business I'd acquired just 3 years earlier. Phoenix Morrison Medical now employed 18 people, generated over $1.4 million in annual revenue, and had installations in 6 states. We'd become exactly what small business success stories were supposed to look like. That's incredible news, Mom said when I told her about the award. 30 years I ran Morrison Medical, and we were never recognized for anything except paying our bills on time. Different company, different capabilities, but built on the foundation you maintained for 30 years. The award ceremony was both gratifying and surreal. I sat at a table with my family, Mom, Dad, Marcus, and David, listening to Patricia Williams read our company's accomplishments to Boston's business community. Phoenix Morrison Medical Solutions has grown from a struggling family manufacturer to a regional leader in smart medical monitoring systems, she announced. Their innovative integration of software analytics with traditional medical devices has created new possibilities for small medical practices while maintaining the personalized service that distinguishes regional companies from national corporations. When she called my name to accept the award, I walked to the podium with a mixture of pride and disbelief. 3 years ago, I'd been the dismissed daughter who couldn't handle serious business meetings. Now I was being recognized as an innovative business leader by the same community that had witnessed my family's struggles. Thank you for this recognition, I began, looking out at the audience. But I want to be clear about something. This award doesn't belong just to me. It belongs to everyone who believed that a small family business could evolve into something bigger without losing what made it special. I found Mom in the audience and continued. My mother, Catherine, built Morrison Medical into a respected company that served its clients faithfully for 30 years. That reputation and those relationships made everything else possible. Mom was crying, and I could see Dad reaching over to squeeze her hand. My brother David provided the technical expertise and dedication that kept the company running during difficult times. My brother Marcus developed the client relationships that created the foundation for our current growth. I paused, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. But most importantly, this award represents what happens when people are willing to admit they were wrong, learn new skills, and work together toward common goals instead of protecting individual pride. The applause was enthusiastic, but what mattered to me was the expression on my family's faces. For the first time since I'd returned to Boston, we looked like people who genuinely respected and supported each other. After the ceremony, a reporter from the Boston Business Journal approached me. Ms. Morrison, there are rumors that you actually owned the company that acquired Morrison Medical. Can you comment on that? Phoenix Morrison Medical is the result of combining Phoenix Solutions technology with Morrison Medical's manufacturing capabilities and client relationships. It's a merger that has benefited everyone involved. But you founded Phoenix Solutions after leaving Morrison Medical, correct? I looked over at Mom, who was talking with other award recipients and clearly enjoying the recognition. The important story is that a small family business was able to adapt to changing market conditions and grow into something more successful than anyone expected. That's what we should be celebrating tonight. The next morning, Mom knocked on my office door and asked if she could speak with me privately. I want to say something, and I need you to listen without interrupting, she began. Okay. 8 years ago, I humiliated you in front of investors because I was afraid of admitting that my 24-year-old daughter understood our industry better than I did. I sent you away because it was easier than acknowledging that I'd been wrong about technology, wrong about market trends, and wrong about your capabilities. 5 years after that Christmas dinner revelation, I'm sitting in the same conference room where I was once told to fetch coffee while adults handled serious business. The difference is that now this room hosts weekly strategy meetings for a company worth $1.8 million, employing 22 people and serving medical facilities across 8 states. Phoenix Morrison Medical Solutions has become everything I envisioned when I first proposed software integration 9 years ago. A regional leader that combines advanced technology with personalized service, proving that small companies can innovate as effectively as large corporations if they're willing to embrace change. But the real transformation wasn't technological or financial. It was personal. The family that had dismissed my ideas and sent me into exile learned to work together as professionals who respected each other's contributions. It wasn't always smooth, and it wasn't always easy, but it was genuine growth rather than forced reconciliation. Mom retired officially last year at 63, but still comes to the office twice a week to handle special client relationships and mentor newer employees. The woman who once believed women couldn't understand technical business now advocates for promoting capable people regardless of gender, and she's become particularly effective at encouraging young women interested in medical technology careers. David has flourished as operations manager, completing his MBA and taking on increasing responsibility for strategic planning and business development. At 35, he's become the technical leader I always knew he could be when he wasn't being overshadowed by family dynamics and unrealistic expectations. Marcus, now 40, has become genuinely excellent at client relationship management. The customer success manager role allowed him to develop skills that were always there but never properly utilized. He's engaged to Jennifer, a nurse practitioner he met through our client network, and they're planning a wedding for next spring. Dad, now 65, handles financial management with the same steady competence he's always shown, but seems genuinely happy to be part of a growing business rather than just maintaining the status quo. He and Mom have started traveling together, something they never did during the years when the company was struggling and consuming all their attention. As for me, I split my time between our Austin headquarters, where Phoenix Solutions continues developing new medical software applications, and our Boston facility, where Phoenix Morrison Medical manufactures and installs integrated monitoring systems. I'm 37 now, unmarried but not lonely, focused on building something sustainable rather than proving something to people who no longer need convincing. The irony is that I achieved everything I wanted when I stormed out of that investor meeting 9 years ago. Professional recognition, technological validation, financial success, and the satisfaction of proving that dismissed ideas can become industry-changing innovations. But the process taught me that getting what you want isn't the same as getting what you need. What I needed was a family that respected my capabilities and valued my contributions. What I got was the opportunity to create that family relationship through demonstrated competence rather than inherited right. It took longer than I'd hoped, and it required more patience than I'd expected, but the result has been more satisfying than simple vindication would have been. Tomorrow, we start working on our next challenge, a comprehensive patient monitoring system for rural hospitals that combines all our current capabilities with new remote diagnostic features. It's exactly the kind of ambitious project that would have been impossible for the old Morrison Medical, but it's routine work for Phoenix Morrison Medical Solutions. The dismissed daughter, who was sent to organize files while adults handled serious business, is now the CEO who leads strategy meetings and makes final decisions about million-dollar contracts. But more importantly, she's part of a family that has learned to function as a team, respecting each person's contributions while working toward shared success. Phoenix Morrison Medical Solutions employs 22 people who depend on us for their livelihoods, serves medical facilities that depend on us for reliable equipment, and provides predictive analytics that help prevent cardiac emergencies in patients across 8 states. We've saved lives, created jobs, and proven that regional companies can compete with national corporations through better service and smarter technology. But most importantly, we've demonstrated that people can grow, change, and learn to work together effectively, even after significant conflicts and disappointments. The family business that almost failed because of rigid thinking and interpersonal dysfunction has become a model for how different generations can collaborate successfully when they focus on contribution rather than hierarchy. Mom learned to value innovation over tradition. Marcus discovered abilities he never knew he had. David developed leadership skills that were always present but never encouraged. Dad found satisfaction in being part of something growing rather than just surviving. And me? I learned that proving people wrong is less satisfying than helping them become right. The best outcome isn't success that excludes the people who doubted you. It's success that includes them as partners in building something none of you could have achieved alone. The Morrison family business survived, adapted, and thrived. And so did the Morrison family itself. During dinner, my sister said she was pregnant and that the father is my husband. But then I revealed a secret. You know when you think you know the people closest to you? When you believe that, no matter what problems exist, certain lines would never be crossed? Well, I thought so too. My name is Marina, I'm 29 years old, and this is the story of how I discovered that some people are capable of anything to get what they want. It was a Thursday in March when I received news of my promotion. After 4 years working as a project manager at a tech company in Austin, Texas, I would finally be commercial director. I couldn't stop smiling at the office. I called David, my husband, and Beatrice, my younger sister, to share the joy. Let's celebrate at Terrazzo tonight, I suggested. Terrazzo was that chic Italian restaurant downtown, where a meal cost more than minimum wage, but I could afford it. I worked hard for this. I arrived at the restaurant first, wearing that navy blue dress that David always said looked perfect on me. I chose a table in a more secluded corner. I wanted privacy to celebrate. The dining room was full of executives and elegant couples, the kind of environment where I felt comfortable after years building my career. When I saw them arriving together, I found it strange. Beatrice was radiant, with a smile I hadn't seen in a long time, and David seemed nervous. He always got a bit uncomfortable in expensive places. But there was something different that night, a tension in the air that I couldn't identify. "Congratulations on the promotion, Mari!" Beatrice hugged me with suspicious effusiveness. She was never very demonstrative with affection, especially with me. We ordered a $200 bottle of Chianti, and I started telling them about the new projects I would lead, the 40% salary increase, the possibilities for international growth. Beatrice listened with too much attention. David kept fidgeting with his napkin. Actually, Beatrice interrupted in the middle of my excitement, we also have news to share. She took David's hand across the table, and my stomach knotted inexplicably. I'm pregnant. The world stopped. Literally stopped. The restaurant voices became a distant buzz. The lights seemed to flicker, and I stared at my sister's hand intertwined with my husband's, as if it were a mirage. Pregnant. Beatrice was pregnant with David's child. I know it's a complicated situation. David spoke for the first time since they arrived, his voice coming out hoarse. But it happened, and we fell in love. They watched me with a mixture of expectation and poorly disguised satisfaction. It was as if they were waiting for me to explode, scream, make a scene that would give the other tables something interesting to talk about later. But I couldn't do anything but stare. My sister, Beatrice, whom I helped pay for college when our parents couldn't, was there holding my husband's hand, pregnant with his child, telling me this on the day of my promotion. How long? I managed to ask, my voice coming out strangely calm. 3 months, Beatrice replied, running her hand over her still imperceptible belly. It started right after your birthday. My birthday had been in December. It was May. 3 months of betrayal, 3 months of lies, 3 months of them laughing at me while I worked 12 hours a day to get this promotion I so wanted to share with the people I loved. Marina, say something, David asked. And for the first time in years, I really looked at him, really paid attention to the man I had been married to for 4 years. He looked relieved, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders, as if this was liberating for him. What do you want me to say? I asked, still in that strange voice that didn't sound like mine. Congratulations? Beatrice laughed, a nervous laugh, but genuine. Look, Mari, I know it's not easy, but these things happen. Love is love, right? And the baby... She ran her hand over her belly again. The baby needs both parents together. I picked up my purse slowly, left 2 $50 bills on the table, more than enough to cover my part of the bill, and stood up. I'm going home. You do whatever you want. As I walked toward the exit, I heard David calling my name, but I didn't turn around. In the wall mirror of the restaurant, I could see their reflection still sitting at the table. Beatrice was smiling. Throughout childhood, Beatrice lived in my shadow, and this irritated her deeply. I was the older daughter, the responsible one, the one who got good grades without having to try very hard. She was the youngest, the spoiled one, the one our parents protected from everything. But for some reason, this was never enough for her. We grew up in a middle-class family in San Antonio. Our father worked as an accountant at an oil company. Our mother was an elementary school teacher. We weren't rich, but we didn't lack anything either. Even so, Beatrice always had the impression that she deserved more. When I got a full scholarship to study business administration at the University of Texas, Beatrice made sure to say it was rich girl's luck. When I graduated with honors and got an internship at a multinational in Austin, she commented that I always knew how to sell myself. When I bought my first apartment at 25, she asked if I wasn't being too ambitious. The worst part is that she really believed she deserved the same things I had, but without the effort. As if success was a matter of luck or favoritism, not hard work and sacrifice. Beatrice studied graphic design at a public university, graduated without much distinction, and since then jumped from job to job, always complaining that bosses didn't recognize her potential. Our parents always tried to balance things out. When I bought my new Honda Civic, they bought a used one for her too. When I started earning well, they increased the help they gave her to pay rent for a small apartment in downtown San Antonio. It was as if they were trying to compensate for my success by keeping Beatrice at the same level. Artificially. She always asked about my salary, my investments, the apartment's value. Just sisterly curiosity, she'd say. But there was an intensity in the way she asked that bothered me. Now I understood it wasn't curiosity. It was pure envy, mixed with greed that I refused to see. When I met David at a work party 5 years ago, Beatrice made sure to say he wasn't my type. He was handsome, nice, worked as a salesman at a BMW dealership. He earned reasonably well by Texas standards, about $5,000 a month with commissions, but nothing compared to my $8,000 salary that soon became $12,000. Still, I fell in love. He was fun, affectionate, made me laugh after stressful days at the office. David had a simplicity that attracted me, an uncomplicated way of seeing life that contrasted with my nature of always planning 3 steps ahead. Beatrice was always polite with David, but I noticed a certain tension, especially when we all went out together and the bill arrived. David sometimes felt embarrassed when I paid for restaurants that cost $100 per person, or when we bought concert tickets that cost $200 each. Beatrice observed all this with that calculating look I knew well, but preferred to ignore. "You support him, don't you?" she asked once, when David went to the bathroom during a family lunch at Olive Garden. "I don't support him," I replied, irritated. "We split things proportionally to our income." It was true. David paid the bills he could, groceries, gas, some household bills, and I covered the rest. It worked for us. But for Beatrice, that was more proof that I had too much luck. A brilliant career, a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment in Austin, a dedicated husband, investments that grew month by month, as if I hadn't fought for every achievement, as if everything had fallen from the sky. I got home, and the apartment was exactly as I had left it that morning. Made bed, dishes washed, everything in place. It was strange how life could completely fall apart, and things could remain exactly the same. David's toothbrush was still there in the bathroom, his clothes in the closet, that ridiculous Dallas Cowboys mug he'd gotten in a dealership promotion. I sat on the beige leather sofa in the living room, still in my dress and high heels, and stared into the void. My head was strangely quiet, as if my brain had shut down the emotion processing system. I knew I should be crying, screaming, breaking things, but all I felt was a kind of numbness, like when you hit your elbow and can't feel your arm for a few minutes. David didn't come home that night, obviously. At 2 in the morning, I received a message. "I'm at B's house. We'll talk tomorrow. B." He called my sister B, as if they'd been intimate for years, as if I didn't exist, as if our 4 years of marriage were just an inconvenient obstacle that had finally been removed. I spent the night awake, walking through the 120 square meters of the apartment, trying to understand how I had gotten there. How hadn't I noticed the signs? Were there signs? David working later in recent weeks. Beatrice asking about my schedule whenever she called. Both of them arriving together at the restaurant as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Now that I thought about it, Beatrice had appeared a lot in Austin in recent months. "I came to see some clients," she'd say. Beatrice worked as a freelance graphic designer, so it was plausible that she had projects in the city. But Austin was only an hour and a half from San Antonio. Why did she always stay in hotels? Why didn't she ever ask to sleep on my couch like she used to? When the sun rose, I was still on the couch, with my dress wrinkled and makeup smeared. My iPhone showed 17 missed calls from my mother. Beatrice had told her everything, probably in a romanticized version where they were 2 lovers who couldn't resist the cruel fate that made them meet through me. I called the office and said I wouldn't be going to work. Simone, my assistant, noticed something was wrong from the tone of my voice but didn't insist. "Call me if you need anything, Marina. You never miss work. It must be something important." She was one of the few people I could trust completely. I went to take a shower, trying to wash away the sticky feeling from that night. Under the hot water, I finally cried. Not dramatic movie tears, but that tired crying of someone who had just lost 2 important people at once. My sister and my husband. The 2 I loved most in the world had betrayed me in the cruelest way possible. When I got out of the shower, I had 3 messages from Beatrice. "Mari, we need to talk. It wasn't how we wanted you to find out. Call me, please. I know it's difficult, but we can resolve this like adults." I deleted them all without responding. For the first time in years, I spent the entire day doing absolutely nothing productive. I watched Netflix, ordered Chinese food that cost $40 and arrived cold, ignored the phone that rang every 2 hours. It was as if I needed a whole day to process the fact that my life had completely changed overnight. That evening, David showed up to get some clothes. He still had the keys, still felt entitled to enter the apartment I had bought alone as if nothing had happened. He tried to talk, explain, justify himself while packing a suitcase with his things. "It wasn't planned, Mari. It just happened." As if betrayal were a meteorological accident, something beyond human control. B was going through a difficult time, needed someone to talk to. "How long have you been together?" I asked, watching him fold the polo shirts I had bought for him at Nordstrom. "Officially, since January. 4 months. 4 months of lies, fake kisses, empty I love yous before sleep. While I worked 60 hours a week to get the promotion, dreaming of our future together, he was building a new life with my sister. I'm going to find a lawyer, I warned, sitting on the king-size bed I had bought the year before. David stopped packing his suitcase and looked at me for the first time since he arrived. Mari, it doesn't have to be like this. We can resolve everything among ourselves civilly. Divide things fairly without complications. Civilly. Divide things fairly. As if betrayal were an issue that could be resolved with politeness and goodwill. As if he had any right to what I had built. After he left taking 2 suitcases and promising to come back on the weekend to get the rest, I called Helena, my best friend since college and a family law attorney in Houston. I told her everything, trying to keep my voice steady. Helena listened to me in silence and when I finished, sighed deeply. Marina, I'm so sorry. I know how much you loved him and trusted your sister. She paused. About the divorce, I need you to bring all the marriage documents, bank statements, deeds, proof of income, investments, everything. I'll put together the best case possible for you. Helena, I don't care about the money. I just want this to end quickly. Don't say that, Marina. You fought hard to build what you have. You're not going to hand it over to someone who betrayed you. Do you have any idea how much your assets are worth today? I didn't have an exact idea, but I knew it was substantial. The apartment was worth at least $400,000. I had about $100,000 in investments, a stake in a startup worth at least $50,000, plus the new salary of $16,000 monthly. I scheduled the meeting for the following week and hung up. That's when I remembered. I needed to organize all the important documents. It wasn't something I did regularly. Who thinks about divorce when they're happy in marriage? I went to the office I had set up in the second bedroom of the apartment, where I kept everything organized in colored folders like a person obsessed with control. Bank statements from the last 2 years, tax returns, investment statements from Fidelity and Charles Schwab. It was impressive to see on paper everything I had achieved at 29. I was proud of what I had built, but now everything seemed so fragile, as if it could disappear because of a betrayal and a poorly conducted divorce process. I took the green folder where I kept the marriage documents. Birth certificate, marriage certificate from Travis County, contract for... I stopped with the marriage certificate in my hand, frowning. There was something written there about property regime that suddenly caught my attention. Separate property regime. Complete separation of assets. Why complete separation? Most couples in Texas chose community property, partial community of assets. That's when I remembered. Vaguely, like a memory that was stored in a dusty drawer of my brain. Prenuptial agreement. I had insisted on making a prenuptial agreement 4 years ago. I ran to the small safe I had installed in the bedroom closet. It had been so long since I'd opened it that I almost forgot the combination. My birthday inverted. Inside, between the apartment deed and my passport, there it was. A sealed envelope with the seals of the Travis County Clerk's office. Prenuptial agreement. Marina Santos Silva and David Oliveira Ferreira. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. I vaguely remembered insisting on this at the time, but the details were hazy. It had been 4 years ago. I was so in love and happy that the legal aspects of marriage seemed just a necessary formality to officialize our love. But now, alone in the bedroom at 2 a.m, holding those pages printed on letterhead from the law firm, I felt something I hadn't experienced in days. A hint of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I wouldn't lose everything I had built. Maybe there was something in those papers that could protect me from my sister's greed and my husband's irresponsibility. I took a deep breath, turned on the bedside lamp, and began reading every word with the attention of someone deciphering their own future. The memory came back like a movie being rewound. It was a sunny Saturday in April, 2 weeks before our wedding. I was 25 and had just signed the purchase contract for my first apartment, a modern 2-bedroom loft in downtown Austin that cost $350,000. David was nervous about the ceremony preparations, complaining about costs that were getting out of control. Mari, are you sure you need all this? He said, looking at the vendor list spread on my kitchen table. $15,000 catering, $8,000 photographer, $12,000 decoration. It's a lot of money. A lot. It was a lot of money indeed, especially for him, who earned about $4,000 a month at the BMW dealership. For me, who had just received a substantial promotion and was earning $12,000 monthly, it was an investment in our special day. But I understood his concern. He had grown up in a family where every dollar was counted. David, relax. I'll pay most of it. You contribute what you can. What's important is us being together, celebrating our love. It was in this context that I mentioned the prenuptial agreement. Not as mistrust, but as natural protection for someone who had significant assets. My lawyer at the time, Dr. Patricia Williams, had suggested it during the apartment purchase. Marina, you're young, successful, and accumulating assets rapidly. A prenup is sensible, especially when there's significant difference in assets between spouses. It's not mistrust, it's intelligent protection. When I talked to David about this on a Tuesday night, he laughed. Literally laughed, almost spitting out the Shinerbach beer he was drinking. Prenuptial? Isn't that rich people nonsense? We love each other, Mari. Love doesn't need papers to prove anything. These things are for couples who enter marriage already thinking about divorce. It's not about love, David. It's legal protection. For both of us. If something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong, he interrupted me, pulling my hand. We're going to be happy forever. You're being paranoid, baby. He made a face like he didn't understand the necessity, but eventually agreed when I explained it was something that would make me more comfortable. If it's important to you, fine. But honestly, I think you're complicating something that should be simple. We went to Dr. Williams's office on a Thursday morning. I remember David was hungover because he had gone out with his dealership colleagues the night before for the last bachelor's outing. He arrived 15 minutes late, somewhat sleepy, complaining that he had lost an important sale because of the appointment. Sorry, Mari. Had to come straight from work. Johnson wanted to close a deal today, but I said I had an important appointment with you. Dr. Williams, an elegant 50-year-old woman with gray hair and impeccable suits, explained the basic terms with the patience of someone who had given that presentation hundreds of times. Complete separation of assets. Each spouse maintains their individual patrimony. No division in case of divorce except for assets acquired jointly with clear proof of mutual contribution. It's important to understand, she said, looking mainly at David, that this agreement protects both parties. If you acquire significant assets during the marriage, they will also be protected. You understand, David? I asked, observing his somewhat lost expression. Yes. Each one keeps what's theirs, right? Makes sense? It made no sense at all that he had understood completely, because David never showed interest in complex legal or financial matters. When I tried to talk about investments or financial planning, he would change the subject or make jokes about me being too uptight with money, but he signed all the pages with the ease of someone signing a grocery list. 15 pages of dense legal text, specific clauses about properties, investments, future businesses, inheritance. David barely read the section titles. There, now you can marry in peace, Dr. Williams said, smiling as she stamped and filed the copies. I hope to never see you here professionally again. On the way back, driving my Honda Civic through Austin streets, David commented, I still think this contract thing is kind of weird, but if it makes you calmer, what's important is that in 2 weeks we'll be married, husband and wife forever. He really didn't understand what he had signed. For David, that was just another necessary bureaucracy to officialize our love, like getting the marriage license or choosing the rings. He didn't comprehend that he was giving up any right to my present and future patrimony, and I, in love and confident that we would be happy forever, didn't mind his lack of attention to details. After all, love was more important than any paper, wasn't it? We were going to build a life together, share everything, be a modern and partnered couple. The contract was just a formality that would never be necessary. How wrong I was. Now, 4 years later, alone in the bedroom at 3 a.m. with the contract in my hands, I finally understood the value of that rich people nonsense. I read each page with redoubled attention, as if I were deciphering a secret code that could save my life. The legal words that at the time seemed just formality, now shone on the page like precious diamonds. Complete separation of property. Each spouse shall maintain individual ownership of all property owned prior to marriage and all property acquired during the marriage. Each spouse. Property acquired during marriage. The apartment I bought before getting married. The investments I made monthly. The stock applications. The stake in the tech startup I bought 2 years ago. All of this was exclusively mine. In the event of dissolution of marriage, there shall be no division of property, with each party retaining the entirety of their individual assets. Dissolution of marriage. There shall be no division of property. David had no right to anything, absolutely nothing of what I had built. I continued reading, looking for some clause that could complicate things, some loophole he could use to claim part of my patrimony, but there wasn't any. The contract was crystal clear, comprehensive, and bulletproof. Dr. Williams had done impeccable work. Spousal support waiver. Both parties hereby waive any right to spousal support, alimony, or maintenance from the other party. Alimony. David had no right even to alimony, and considering he earned much less than me, Theoretically, he would be the one who could ask for financial support. For the first time in 3 days, I smiled. A small smile, but genuine. David had signed his own financial sentence 4 years ago, without even realizing it. And Beatrice... Oh, Beatrice. She had probably seduced my husband thinking he would be her gateway to a financially comfortable life. What delicious irony. I continued reading the specific clauses. Debt separation, each one responsible for their own. Future businesses. Corporate participation remained individual. Intellectual property, royalties and patents were not shared. Inheritance, assets received from family remained with the original recipient. It was complete armor. David had no right to a cent of what I had built, and more importantly, I had no responsibility for his debts. I remembered he had financed a Ford F-150 pickup the year before, plus had a high-limit credit card that he used frequently. I took my laptop and started making a mental list of my current patrimony. Apartment valued at least $400,000. Investments in stocks and funds totaling about $100,000. Stake in the startup I founded with 2 college colleagues worth at least $50,000 in the last contribution. Checking and savings account with $40,000. Paid off car valued at $20,000. More than $600,000 in net worth at 29. And David had no right to any of it. Even better, my new salary as commercial director would be $16,000 monthly, plus performance-based bonuses that could reach $20,000 per month in the best quarters, while David would continue earning his $4,000 or $5,000 monthly selling cars. For the first time in days, I smiled. A small smile, but genuine. David had signed his own financial sentence 4 years ago without even realizing it. And Beatrice? Oh, Beatrice. She had probably seduced my husband thinking he would be her gateway to a financially comfortable life. What delicious irony. I remembered the conversation we had last Christmas, when she complained about the injustice of me having everything. Marie, do you realize how frustrating it is? Beautiful apartment, new car, trips, while I kill myself working and barely pay rent. Now I understood it wasn't frustration, it was planning. Beatrice had seen in David an opportunity to finally get what she deserved without working for it. She didn't love him. She loved what she thought he could give her access to. I stored the contract back in the safe, but first took photos of all pages with my iPhone. I sent the images to Helena by email with the subject, "Gift from God." She responded in 15 minutes, even though it was almost 4 in the morning. "Marina, this changes everything. Call me tomorrow." For the first time since that horrible dinner at Terrazzo, I managed to sleep a few hours. And for the first time in years, I dreamed about my future. A future where I was completely free to be whoever I wanted to be, without anyone trying to steal what I had built. I woke up the next morning with a mental clarity I hadn't felt in days. While having coffee in my modern kitchen, looking out the 10th floor window at the Austin skyline, I began connecting dots that before seemed like innocent coincidences. Beatrice had always shown suspicious interest in my financial life. It wasn't just fraternal curiosity. There was a calculating intensity in her questions that now made complete sense. "How much do you pay in rent for this apartment?" she had asked during a visit last year. When I explained it was financed, not rented, her eyes lit up. "Wow, it must be worth a fortune." She asked about my salary with uncommon frequency. "Mari, how much are you earning now?" "Just to situate myself in the market," she'd say, as if she were comparing with her own opportunities as a freelancer. When I mentioned I was investing in stocks, she wanted to know specific amounts. "I'm thinking about starting to invest too. I need a reference." I remembered a specific conversation during last year's Christmas. We were at our parents' house in San Antonio, and Beatrice had had a few too many glasses of wine. "Mari, do you realize how frustrating it is to see you having everything? Beautiful apartment, new car, trips, expensive clothes, while I kill myself working and can barely pay rent. Beatrice, you can have all this too. It's a matter of working hard and making smart choices," I replied, trying to be encouraging. "Oh, sure, everyone has the same opportunities, right? You were always the perfect daughter, the smart one, the one who gets everything easy. I have to kill myself to get crumbs." At the time, I thought it was just the wine talking. Now I realized it was envy and resentment accumulated over years. Beatrice genuinely believed she deserved what I had, but without the corresponding effort. And David, poor David. He was never an ambitious person financially. He was satisfied with his dealership salary, with his simple life of weekend beer and football on television. But I noticed how he sometimes looked at the things I bought with a mixture of admiration and discomfort. $400 for a purse, Mari? That's almost my rent," he commented when I bought a coach at Nordstrom. It wasn't criticism. It was more like he was trying to process a financial world completely different from his. Beatrice had probably planted seeds in his head. Imagine when you two get divorced, David. Half of all this will be yours. She didn't know about the prenuptial agreement because I never told anyone in the family. It was a private matter between me and my husband. Now I understood the conversation I overheard by chance a few months ago. David was on the phone on the balcony and I thought it was work. But now I remembered hearing, "I don't know if it's the right time. She suspects something. I need to be sure." At the time, I thought he was talking about some complicated sale. Now I realized he was probably talking to Beatrice about how and when to reveal their relationship. The most painful part was realizing they had planned that moment at the restaurant. The choice of terrazzo, on the day of my promotion, the way they arrived together, the poorly disguised satisfaction on their faces. It wasn't an impulse or a desperate confession. It was theater. They wanted to humiliate me publicly, catch me off guard, see me fall apart, and they probably expected me to react with desperation, begging David to come back, offering anything to save my marriage. Too bad they didn't know about the prenuptial agreement. I spent the weekend organizing my strategy. I called Helena early Monday morning, before even going to work. "Marina girl, this contract is a work of legal art. David has no right to absolutely anything. We can process the divorce in 60 days if he doesn't contest." "And if he contests? Based on what?" "He signed the prenup. Everything is registered. There are no vices of consent. Unless he proves coercion or fraud, which is impossible, he's screwed." Screwed? David was screwed and didn't even know it yet. "Helena, I want to do something. I'm going to call them and propose a civilized conversation about the divorce. I want to see their faces when they discover the truth. Marina, are you sure? It might be simpler to just file and be done with it." "I'm sure. They humiliated me in public. I want to return the favor." 3 weeks passed since that night at Terrazzo. 3 weeks in which David came to get the rest of his things from the apartment, always accompanied by Beatrice, as if he needed protection or moral support. 3 weeks in which my mother called daily trying to mediate the situation, as if betrayal were a misunderstanding that could be resolved with a frank conversation. "Marina, dear, I know you're hurt, but these things happen. David has always been a good boy and Beatrice is pregnant. Can't you think about the baby? Think about the baby. The baby that my sister was using as an excuse to steal my husband and, consequently, my patrimony. Mom, I won't discuss this. David and I are getting divorced, period. But Marina, you built a life together. The apartment, the plans." "Ah, yes. The apartment. The plans." My mother also believed David had a right to half of everything. Beatrice had probably filled the whole family's heads with stories about how I was selfish and petty for not graciously accepting the betrayal. In the 4th week, I called Beatrice. She answered on the 2nd ring as if she were waiting for my call. "Mari, so good that you called. We really need to talk." "Hi, B. Look, I thought a lot about this whole situation, and I think you guys are right. There's no point in holding grudges. We're adults. These things happen." Silence on the other end of the line. She wasn't expecting this reaction. "Really? You're okay with this?" "I'm trying to accept it. I mean, you fell in love, right? It wasn't anyone's fault. And now there's the baby to think about." "Wow, Mari, you can't imagine how relieved I am hearing this. David was so worried, thinking you were going to make drama, complicate the divorce. Complicate the divorce. How interesting. As if I were the complicated person in the story. Not at all. Can we meet to talk civilly about how to resolve everything? Without fights, just to settle things like adults. Maybe dinner again, but this time for closure, not for surprises?" Beatrice laughed nervously. "Of course. That would be great. David will be so happy. He was afraid you would, well, make a scene." "No, imagine. Scene for what? Let's meet at Terrazzo again, since that's where it all started." "Saturday night?" "Perfect. Mari, you can't imagine how important this is for us. Especially now, with the baby coming." I hung up the phone smiling. Saturday night would be interesting. Very interesting. I spent the following days preparing like an actress rehearsing for the performance of her life. I chose the outfit, an elegant black dress that conveyed seriousness and control. I practiced in the mirror the calm and resigned expression I wanted to maintain throughout the entire conversation. Helena thought the idea was risky. "Marina, are you sure you want to do this? It might be more efficient to simply notify them through a lawyer." "Helena, they humiliated me in public. They planned everything to see me fall apart in front of a restaurant full of people. They deserve the same treatment. And if they suspect something, they won't suspect. They're too busy planning how to spend my inheritance." I arrived at Terrazzo on Saturday punctually at 8 at night. I asked for the same table as last time. The maitre d' recognized me and made a comment about hoping tonight would be a happier night. If he only knew. David and Beatrice arrived together again, but this time the atmosphere was completely different. They were relaxed, smiling, holding hands like a couple in love who could finally show themselves in public. Beatrice wore a dress that highlighted her still small but noticeable belly. "Mari!" Beatrice hugged me with genuine effusiveness. "You look beautiful. Is that dress new?" "Thank you. You both look well too. How's the pregnancy?" "Great. We're already thinking about names." "David wants Michael if it's a boy. I prefer Gabriel." David pulled out the chair for Beatrice to sit, a chivalrous gesture he rarely made for me. "Marina, thank you for agreeing to talk like this. Peacefully, I was afraid that I would make drama? Imagine, David. We're all adults here. We ordered the same bottle of Chianti as last time. The irony wasn't lost on any of us, but this time the atmosphere was one of disguised celebration. They thought they had won the grand prize. "So," David said after the first sip, "about the divorce. We wanted to propose doing everything amicably. Divide things fairly without complications." "Divide things fairly," I repeated, savoring the words. "Tell me more about this, David. What do you consider fair?" Beatrice and David exchanged a quick glance. They had rehearsed this conversation. "Well, we can sell the apartment and split it 50-50. The investments too. And now with your new promotion, alimony will help a lot until I can stabilize with B and the baby." Alimony. He really believed I would pay alimony to him while he raised a child with my sister. I slowly picked up my purse as if I were looking for something specific. David and Beatrice watched me expectantly, probably thinking I was going to take out some divorce documents for us to sign right there, in a friendly reconciliation that would benefit them immensely. Instead, I placed the courthouse envelope with the prenuptial agreement on the table. The paper yellowed by time made a dry sound when it hit the wood. "Before we talk about division, I need to clarify something important that you seem to have forgotten." David frowned, looking at the envelope. "What is that?" "Our prenuptial agreement, David. Remember? The one you signed 4 years ago, saying it was rich people nonsense?" The color instantly drained from his face. Beatrice looked confused between the two of us. "What agreement? You made a prenuptial agreement?" "We did. And David signed it without even reading it properly." I took the pages out of the envelope and placed them on the table, open so both could see. "Complete separation of assets. Do you remember what that means?" David picked up the pages with trembling hands. His eyes ran over the lines, trying to process words he clearly didn't understand completely 4 years ago. "Calm down, Mari," Beatrice said, her voice losing its previous confidence. "Even with an agreement, you were married. There's partial community property, division of assets acquired during marriage. Not when there's complete separation of assets, Beatrice." I pointed to the specific clause. "It's here. Each spouse shall maintain individual ownership of all property owned prior to marriage and all property acquired during the marriage. Everything acquired during marriage also stays with whoever acquired it." "But this can't be legal," David protested, his voice rising an octave. "The apartment, the investments. I lived there. I contributed to expenses. You contributed $300 a month for groceries and gas, David. I paid the $1,800 for financing, the $200 for condo fees, internet, electricity, phone, insurance. Your $300 doesn't give you property rights over a $400,000 apartment." Beatrice frantically flipped through the pages, as if looking for some loophole, some salvation. "But alimony. He has a right to alimony." I smiled for the first time that night. Page 5, Section 3. Spousal support waiver. Both parties hereby waive any right to spousal support, alimony, or maintenance. David waived his right to alimony when he signed this. "I didn't know what I was signing," David shouted, drawing attention from neighboring tables. "You tricked me." "I tricked you?" "David, you were there when the lawyer explained each clause. You said you understood. There are witnesses, everything is registered at the courthouse." The expression on Beatrice's face was changing from confusion to horror. Reality was hitting like a runaway train. "You mean he has no right to anything?" "Nothing. Zero. Zilch." I put the papers back in the envelope. David leaves the marriage exactly as he entered, with his financed pickup, his clothes, and his credit card debts. David ran his hand over his face, finally understanding the magnitude of the situation. "Marina, for God's sake, we can talk about this. You can't leave me with nothing. I'm going to have a child to support." "You are going to have a child to support," I emphasized. With your car salesman salary, which, by the way, with child support will be quite tight. Child support? Beatrice asked, her voice coming out as a whisper. Of course, the father has to pay child support. In Texas, it's usually 20% of net income for one child. If David earns $5,000 gross, about $3,800 net remains. 20% of that is $760 per month, forever, until the child turns 18. The two looked at each other in panic. They clearly hadn't done these calculations. Plus medical expenses, daycare when necessary, clothes, education. It's going to be quite expensive to have a baby, guys. David sank into his chair. My God, Marina, how can you be so cold? So calculating? Calculating? Me? You two planned this betrayal for months, humiliated me publicly in this same restaurant, and I'm the calculating one. Beatrice was clearly doing mental math. If David earned $5,000 a month and was going to pay $800 in support, $4,200 would remain, minus taxes, about $3,400 net, to support him, her, and a baby. Beatrice, how much do you earn as a freelancer again? I asked, knowing the answer well. It varies, about $2,000 a month when there are projects. About $2,000 when there are projects. So you'll live on $5,400 monthly at best, for 3 people. Living where? At my house in San Antonio, she murmured. That 1-bedroom apartment you rent for $800? It's going to be cramped with a baby, don't you think? The silence at the table was deafening. Around us, other customers dined happily, oblivious to the financial drama unfolding just meters away. Marina, David tried once more. Are you really going to do this? Leave us with nothing? I know we hurt you, but, David, you didn't hurt me. You tried to rob me. You thought I was an emotional idiot who would hand over half of my $600,000 patrimony because you were in love. $600,000? Beatrice repeated, incredulous. Surprise! I'm richer than you imagined. And now, with the promotion, I'll earn $16,000 a month, while you fight over money for diapers. David buried his face in his hands. I'm an idiot. A complete idiot. Finally, something we agree on. Beatrice tried one last card. Mari, you're my sister. We've always been family. You can't abandon us like this. And your niece or nephew? Don't you want to help? Beatrice. You tried to steal my husband thinking you'd steal my fortune along with him. You calculated wrong. And now you'll have to live with the consequences of your choices. But family doesn't betray family. Family doesn't humiliate family in public restaurants. Family doesn't seduce their sister's husband out of greed. I got up from the table, leaving 2 $50 bills, again more than enough for my part. Your lawyers can contact mine, Helena Williams, in Houston. She has all the necessary information. Marina, wait. David stood up, trying to follow me. No, David, you waited. You waited 4 months to tell me the truth. You waited until the day of my promotion to maximize the humiliation. You waited until you thought you had everything planned perfectly. Now I'm going to make you wait. Wait for what? Beatrice asked, tears beginning to form in her eyes. Wait to see what it's like to be poor. What it's like to live counting pennies. What it's like not being able to pay for dinner at a $200 restaurant. I stopped at the door, looking back at both of them. Maybe now you'll understand why I work so hard to have what I have, and why I protect what's mine. I left Terrazzo hearing Beatrice start to cry and David cursing under his breath. In the parking lot, sitting in my car, I allowed myself a moment of pure satisfaction. They had tried to destroy me and ended up destroying themselves. My phone rang. It was Helena. So, how was the theater? Better than Broadway. You should have seen their faces when they understood they wouldn't get anything. Marina, you're diabolical, and I completely approve. Helena, can I file for divorce tomorrow? I can file the papers Monday. In 60 days, you'll be free, and they'll still be poor. I drove home smiling for the first time in weeks. Actually, smiling more than I had smiled in years. 6 months later, life had settled into a new normalcy that I had never imagined possible. The divorce was finalized in exactly 60 days. David didn't contest, probably because any competent lawyer would have explained that he didn't have the slightest chance of winning. Helena did impeccable work, and I officially became single on a sunny July morning. Through social media and my mother's inevitable comments, I followed from afar the reality that David and Beatrice were facing. It was like watching a car accident in slow motion. You know you should look away, but you can't. David continued working at the BMW dealership, but things weren't easy. With the unstable economy, luxury car sales had decreased, and his commission had plummeted along with it. According to my mother, he was earning about $3,500 a month, much less than the $5,000 he used to make. Marina, David is going through difficulties, my mother said during one of our weekly phone conversations. With the baby's support, very little is left for him to live on. What a shame, I replied, without a hint of genuine sympathy. But babies are expensive. He should have thought about that beforehand. Little Sophia had been born in September, a little girl who, from photos circulating in the family, had David's eyes and Beatrice's stubbornness. The $800 monthly child support was being automatically deducted from David's salary, leaving even less money for his own expenses. Beatrice had moved back to our parents' house in San Antonio. The one-bedroom apartment she rented was impossible for a couple with a baby, and even splitting bills, they couldn't afford anything bigger. Our parents, already retired and living on limited income, now supported 3 adults and a baby on my father's retirement. Beatrice is trying to get more clients, but it's difficult with the baby, my mother continued. And David? He seems so tired lately, working late, driving an hour and a half every day between Austin and San Antonio. David had tried to move to San Antonio to be closer to the family, but couldn't get a transfer at the dealership. Now he made the daily commute, spending a fortune on gas he could barely afford. He asked to talk to you, my mother said hesitantly. Maybe you could resolve some things. Mom, we have nothing to resolve. The divorce is finalized, he has a new family, let everyone follow their own life. It was true. I had followed my life spectacularly. With the divorce resolved and the betrayal overcome, my energy multiplied exponentially. I concentrated all my strength on my career and business, and the results exceeded my most optimistic expectations. As commercial director, I beat all first-quarter targets, securing the maximum bonus. My effective salary reached $22,000 a month in some periods. The startup I was a partner in secured new investment, tripling the value of my stake. In October, I found an even larger and more modern loft in downtown Austin. 2 floors, 3 bedrooms, private terrace with lake view. I sold my old apartment for $500,000, $80,000 profit in 5 years, and bought the loft in cash for $700,000. I renovated everything from scratch. German kitchen, complete automation, private gym, office with panoramic view. I spent $200,000 on the renovation, but the result was an architectural work of art that became the cover of Austin Home and Design magazine. Wow, Marina, said Simone, my assistant, when she came to see the new loft. This looks like a movie house. You've achieved the American dream. It was true. At 30, I had a net worth of over $1 million, a solid career at an international company, and complete freedom to do whatever I wanted. I traveled to Europe 3 times that year. Paris, Rome, Barcelona. Always alone, always first class, always staying at the best hotels. I bought clothes at boutiques I previously considered too expensive, dined at Michelin-starred restaurants, shopped without looking at prices. The loneliness? Curiously, I didn't feel it. After years of being betrayed by those I trusted most, the peace of being alone was almost addictive. I didn't need to explain my expenses to anyone, didn't need to consider others' opinions in my decisions, didn't need to share my space or my time. I started therapy, not for sadness, but for growth. Dr. Rebecca Chen, an incredible psychologist of Asian origin, helped me process not just the betrayal, but years of toxic relationships disguised as family love. Marina, you grew up believing you had to take care of everyone around you, she said in one session. Your sister, your parents, your ex-husband. When was the last time someone took care of you? It was a simple question that made me cry for 15 minutes. I had always been the provider, the responsible one, the problem solver. I never stopped to think if anyone was taking care of me. Maybe it's time for you to put yourself first, Dr. Chen suggested, and discover who you are when you're not supporting other people. That's exactly what I did. During the holiday season, I received several messages from Beatrice. First reconciliation attempts, then direct requests for financial help. Mari, I know you're upset, but we're sisters. Sophia is your niece. Can't you at least help with some baby things? Marina, expenses with Sophia are very high. Diapers, medicine, pediatrician. David is killing himself working but can't cover everything. Mari, for God's sake. Answer my messages. We need help, and you're the only person in the family who can afford it. I read them all without responding. I blocked the number after the 10th message. My mother tried to mediate. Marina, whatever the hurt, the child is innocent. Don't you want to meet your niece? Mom, when Beatrice decided to seduce my husband, she made a choice. Now she's living with the consequences of that choice. It's not my responsibility to solve the financial problems they created. But you have so much money. I have so much money because I worked hard to have it, and because I protected what I built. If Beatrice wanted financial stability for her child, she should have thought about that before getting pregnant by a man who earns $4,000 a month. It was harsh with my mother, but necessary. The whole family had gotten used to the idea that I was the personal emergency bank for any crisis. Not anymore. On my 30th birthday in December, I organized a party at the new loft. I invited work colleagues, college friends, some people I met traveling, 50 elegant people, French champagne, professional catering, live musician. Looking out my terrace window at the Austin lights, with a glass of Dom Perignon in my hand, and surrounded by people who genuinely enjoyed my company, I felt deep gratitude. Gratitude that David had betrayed me. Without the betrayal, I would never have discovered my own strength, never would have learned to set boundaries, never would have realized I could be completely happy alone. Gratitude for the prenuptial agreement that my younger self had the wisdom to make. Those papers saved me from years of legal battle and allowed me to start over immediately. Gratitude even for Beatrice. Without her envy and greed, I never would have learned that not all family deserves unconditional loyalty. Some people are toxic regardless of blood ties. The week after my birthday, I received one last contact attempt. Not from Beatrice or David, but from my father. Marina, your mother didn't want me to call, but I need to talk to you. Things are very difficult here at home. David lost his job at the dealership last week. Year-end cuts. My father rarely interfered in family conflicts. When he called, it was because the situation was really critical. And what do you want me to do, Dad? I don't know, daughter. I don't know what to do anymore. There are 4 people here at home, a small child, and now, without David's income. Your mother is talking about going back to work, but she's 70 years old. I felt a pang of guilt. Genuine, for the first time in months. My parents weren't to blame for the situation. They were just trying to help a daughter in difficulties as parents do. Dad, I can help you, but I won't give money to David or Beatrice directly. If you need something specific, electric bill, groceries, pediatrician for Sophia, send me the bills and I'll pay them directly. Marina, that's my offer. I'll help you, who are innocent in this story. But I won't finance the bad choices David and Beatrice made. My father accepted, relieved. In the following months, I received some bills by email. $200 electric bill, $300 groceries, $150 pediatric consultation. Trivial amounts for me, but they made a difference for them. I never had direct contact with David or Beatrice again. According to my father, David got a job at a smaller dealership, earning half what he used to earn. Beatrice continued doing sporadic freelance work, but with a small child, it was impossible to work full-time. They had moved to a trailer park in San Antonio. $500 monthly rent for a tiny space, but it was what they could afford. Sophia's support continued being automatically deducted, leaving even less money for them. They fight a lot about money, my father told me in a conversation. David blames Beatrice for insisting on the divorce. Beatrice blames him for losing his job. It's a cycle. It was exactly what I imagined would happen. When people get together for wrong reasons, greed, envy, opportunism, and financial reality knocks on the door. False love disappears quickly. 2 years after the betrayal, my life was completely transformed. Not just financially, but emotionally. I learned to say no without guilt. I learned that self-esteem is non-negotiable. I learned that some people are incapable of genuinely loving. They can only see other people as resources to be exploited. I started dating Daniel, an architect I met at an art exhibition. He had his own successful company, his own resources, his own ambitions. Our relationship was based on real partnership, not financial or emotional dependence. You have impressive strength, he told me one night, while we dined on my loft's terrace. But also an inner peace that's rare. He was right. I had found a peace that came from knowing exactly who I was and what I deserved. I no longer needed anyone's approval, no longer needed to support people who didn't contribute to my life. Sophia turned 2 without me meeting her personally. From photos my mother insisted on showing on her phone, she was a beautiful and apparently healthy child. I felt a hint of curiosity about her, but not enough to reconnect with Beatrice and David. Some friends thought I was being cruel. Marina, she's your niece. Don't you miss family? I have family, I would respond. My parents, who love me unconditionally. My true friends, whom I've built over the years. Family isn't just blood. It's who really cares about your well-being. It was true. Simone, my assistant, was more present in my life than Beatrice ever was. Helena continued being a close friend and advisor. Dr. Chen helped me grow in ways I didn't even know I needed. On the 3rd anniversary of the betrayal, I received a message from an unknown number. It was David. Marina, I know you don't want to talk to me, but I need to tell you something. You were right about everything. About me, about Beatrice, about the money. I was an idiot and destroyed the best thing I had in life. I hope you're happy. Reading that message didn't bring me satisfaction or anger, just a kind of peaceful closure. David had finally understood what he lost, but it was too late. I had moved on completely. I deleted the message without responding. Today, at 32, I look back and see how that horrible night at Terrazzo was actually the best gift life could have given me. It forced me to discover who I really was when I wasn't being exploited or underestimated. I'm now executive director of the company, with a salary of $300,000 annually. My net worth has exceeded $2 million. I travel the world regularly, both for work and pleasure. I have a healthy relationship with someone who values me and contributes equally to our partnership. More importantly, I learned that people who really love you don't try to steal your peace, your money, or your dignity. They celebrate your successes, respect your boundaries, and build together with you. David continues living in the trailer park, working jobs that pay little, fighting with Beatrice about money they don't have. Beatrice continues sending occasional messages asking for help, which I continue ignoring. Sophia is growing up in a family that struggles financially because of her parents' selfish choices. Sometimes I wonder if I should feel guilty for having so much while they have so little. But then I remember, they tried to rob me. They planned my humiliation. They calculated my emotional and financial destruction. The fact that they calculated wrong isn't my fault. I built everything I have with honest work, intelligent decisions, and adequate protection of my assets. They tried to take a shortcut through betrayal, and discovered that shortcuts often lead to dead ends. I learned that self-esteem and dignity are non-negotiable, that not all family deserves loyalty, that underestimated people can surprise in devastating ways, and that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well, while those who tried to harm you reap the consequences of their own choices. My story isn't about revenge. It's about justice. It's about discovering that it's worth protecting what you build, and that not everyone deserves access to your life. And it's about learning that when you stop supporting people who only exploit you, much more energy remains to build something truly extraordinary.